Oh, welcome. And I'm so excited for today. We're back with Inspired Inc. We're doing our weekly lives, and it's kind of exciting doing them live with you guys now too, because there's like that hint of pressure, even though every episode kind of felt like live. We don't really alter anything that goes on with the shows because we want to keep it pure for everybody, and keep these conversations honest and fun and exciting. And part of doing the live thing just kind of keeps us on our toes and has us like rushing for air, I guess, for every few seconds, just to make sure we have you guys and we're having fun. And so today, the show has been so great because we have brought on so many cool guests that do comics, that do screenwriting, that are editors in some avenues, that actually do all sorts of work in the comic industry. But I love finding creators that are kind of approaching comics for their first time because that kind of, in a weird way, relates a lot to my journey because I've been so kind of fresh and new to comics. I've just been, I feel like, overly exposed over the last 2.5 years as I put out my first book and became part of CWS. So it's kind of like a reflection point for me. And it's one of those things where it helps me channel what I've learned and how we could help people. And this creator, I've actually been lucky enough to partner with on a couple things and give some small advice and tidbits here and there. And to bring him on the show is going to be really exciting. So, Jonathan, I'm so excited to bring you on. I'm really hyped to have you. You have a really awesome Kickstarter that's going on at the moment. You have a new book that's an epic story in a graphic novel format, and that you're doing it live on Kickstarter. We don't promote Kickstarters on the show because it's very timeless, but yours is such an interesting situation on how you brought it about, on your approach to it, what's going on with your Kickstarter. So, dude, I'm super excited. What else can I say to introduce you? You do so many cool things as well as a screenwriter, as a professor, and now you're kind of entering the comic realm. So, one, how are you? How's your campaign going, and how's the mental with the campaign?
Uh, there's definitely some stress involved, but I want to go back to something you said about a second ago. First, thank you for having me on. Hello, everybody. Um, you didn't help me a little bit; you helped me a lot. So, if you guys don't know Brandon, he's absolutely awesome. We connected through like 4 different like telephone routes, and he was you've been so generous with your time. I would have messed up my Kickstarter for sure. So, you didn't help me out a little bit; you helped me out a lot, man. And people like you are unbelievably awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. What was the question? Who am I? How did I get
Yeah.
here?
And even with the campaign itself, your campaign is so Eric, Earic. I
Earic,
might be
like
Eric. There
ear,
you go.
ick. Yeah,
There you go. Yeah, I have to read
Earic.
it whenever I say it sometimes.
Yeah, no worries.
But it's a crazy saga. So you approach this campaign very interestingly. You're doing a 60-day campaign. And what was your intention behind the 60-day approach versus, traditionally it's a 30-day campaign. Some of us will experiment with like a 15, a 20, but seeing you do like a 60-day, what was your intention for going that long?
You want full transparency, or you want
Yeah,
like the spin of it? This
100%, all of it.
the
Yeah.
so for those of you who don't know, the graphic, it's a 124 page graphic novel that's actually completely done. So I've been working on this for a decade. The art itself took about 4.5 years. And in the lead up, like I did my absolute utmost to reach out to exceptionally generous people with their time and with experience. And, you know, a fool thinks himself wise, a wise man listens, or whatever the saying is. So I was listening to everybody and all the feedback I could get, like, absolutely. So really what was said to me, and I've always been super optimistic about this whole process, was that it was going to be a really difficult time to get funded in like the space, and it was going to be, you know chances were it wasn't going to be successful. So I took that to heart, and instead of being like intimidated by it or afraid of it, I was always extremely optimistic that it was going to be super successful. So, but with that, quite a few people, let's just say north of 15, somewhere in the like the zone of 30, saying like it's going to be it's going to be a grind, it's going to be really brutal. I wanted to give it the best chance for success that it could have. So I went from the 30 to 45 to, even looking at just reading, even on Kickstarter, they have a lot of like good info for you just to read. It was like a lot of people will go with the 60 to kind of to give it the best chance to be successful. So that was like the cost benefit analysis I did in my own head. It was, this is going to be really tough. I don't know if this is going to work. So let me give myself the best opportunity to be successful. So luckily, we've had some success and it's gone really, really well. So there's no like hindsight's 2020 on this one. It was a 60-day decision, and it's been going really outstanding. And now we have a couple extra weeks to like come on incredible podcasts like yours, and hopefully maybe get some push goals and stuff. So no regrets, but that was the thought process behind the 30 and 60. So if anybody's thinking about their first Kickstarter, it's like, have a plan, listen to advice from everybody, like people with a ton of experience or successful Kickstarters like yourself. Or I know, I've talked to a lot of people with a lot of different, very successful Kickstarters. So that was the thought process behind it. Let me listen to everybody, not get defensive. They're the experts. And it kind of boiled down to the best chance for success was leaning towards a longer campaign. So that's how we got to the 60 versus the 30.
And so how do you feel now that you've entered that realm? Like you hit success really early in your campaign in the sense of fully funded, and now you're entering the realm of getting extra funds into it. Do you feel like you could have done a 45 and just been happy with that? Or are you really happy you're actually going to tough this out for about 19 more days? I want to say that's left on your campaign. 20?
Yeah, we're about 3 weeks out. So I think it's 20 or 19, something like that. I think you're spot on. There's like I do try to be positive. So toughing it out, I don't think I would frame it that way. I frame it as like an opportunity to keep reaching more people and getting more people to like in the last. So amazing enough, this is kind of a skip ahead, but I was at LA Comic-Con just yesterday, and Ivan Tao was awesome. He did our A and B covers for the book. He did a little blast, and we got a couple more backers just maybe off that. And the combination of going to LA Comic-Con yesterday and kind of walking around and handing out some stuff. But I don't think there's any regret like at all with the longer decision. I mean, we're going to print the book. It's going to get to everybody. It's going to be awesome. So if we have an extra 2 or 3 weeks on a Kickstarter, and maybe we can get, who knows, even if it's just one more backer, like it doesn't have to be 1 million, it would be amazing. But if we can get one more backer, maybe from your audience, that would be absolutely awesome. And I can't wait to get that person the book. So only positive things.
Yeah, that's honestly the greatest way to look at these type of moments too, is figuring out the positivity behind it, because you could get really bogged down and be like, man, I could have taken a break and I could have hit 45 and been happy. But like you said, even one extra backer is going to fuel the fire a little bit more. And that kind of keeps you motivated. And it's one extra book, in somebody's hands. And that's essentially just all you want. And you were saying, you've kind of overcome some stuff and taking in feedback and whatnot. How do you balance out like what feedback to take and what not to take? And I know there's a lot of weariness about, Kickstarters and campaigns, because everyone has different experiences. Everyone's on different levels of Kickstarters, I've noticed. I do. Your campaign has been awesome. You did 6K. That was your goal. And I see why that was such a tremulous time to figure out like how long should I do it, how am I going to get support, and it's really nerve-wracking entering that. I've done smaller campaigns myself around the 2,000 3,000 goal and whatnot, and so even when I gave you advice, I was very cautious because of my experience and what I've known other people to do. So how did you balance out some of the feedback of the do's and don'ts? I'm sure there was some push and shove on probably on every aspect of what you do regarding a Kickstarter.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can answer the question more broadly and less specific to a Kickstarter. So I'll go back to, I had a kind of a life before becoming a writer where I was in a corporate world and really didn't have, I just didn't want to do that. So I applied to graduate film school and I made a life transition. And I'll skip ahead to exactly how this is relevant. You learn really quickly in an academic setting and like where you're workshopping scripts all the time to get and receive feedback. Like oftentimes, I'm not talking about the feedback I got on the Kickstarter. I'm talking about it in an academic setting. There's different levels of who can write, and how many scripts have you written? What's your background? But you're taking feedback from all different people, and you could be defensive and get angry about stuff, or get super worked up, or you can just like understand what your skill set is, hear the note, and even if you don't agree with it, kind of figure out exactly why they gave it to you. Like if they're like, I hate this part of your script, it's like, okay, well, why didn't it resonate with them? Even though what they're saying, in my opinion, like my perspective is nonsensical, there's something there, so you can find it. And this leads to like the most, I would say, traumatic note session of my life, which is, I'm going to give some insight and make people laugh, hopefully here. So I did well in my graduate program, and we were a very excellent film school. So I got this opportunity to have a special class where I actually went out to like Universal Studios, and I worked with a showrunner named Jack Orman. He's worked on like ER and It was Shades of Blue at the time. And I showed up with a script that I still think it's a really good pilot, by the way, like even to this day. It's basically like a Gotham, like a city in decay where priests band together because they have confessionals and hear all like the gossip, and they bring in like mercenaries to clean out the city. So the script was called like God's Will, and Will was the hand of God that came in to clean it out. Cool. But I still think the script is awesome. Like even to this day, like I would actually love to like maybe one day do something with it, or if anybody, you know, something. But man, so Mr. Orman, he's an awesome dude, by the way. He came in with his assistant and stuff, and they laid into me so hard. Like every line of the script was getting dumped on, and it was a 3-hour class. And basically, if anyone ever goes to film school, like when there's blood in the water and people are trying to present like impress Mr. Orman and stuff, they all jumped on the back of like everything he was saying. And it was just this like, oh my goodness. It went from like before class, everyone was like, your script is so awesome, to we were in there and it's like, this is the biggest like piece of like, why did you do this? You're awful, you're whatever. And I kid you not, this is a true story. So by the end of class, like I couldn't speak because I would have started to cry. So I was sitting there and I was just like, and they were just like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, and if I would have said one more word, I would have just broke down. So it was like the most brutal. I was also having some stuff going on in my life. So it was like a brutal situation. But I came out of that and I was like, okay, like I will, now that that's happened, like I'll never let that happen again. Like I was holding on to the script. It was too precious to me and all these things. And it was like, I do need to take advice from everybody. So to transition to your question on like a Kickstarter type of thing, like, you know, I had people look me right in the eye and say like, Jon, this is not going to work. Like make it a $500 Kickstarter, pray you can get that. And then whatever you go over is just golden. And I listened to the note and I absorbed it, and I didn't take any offense to it. I didn't react to it at all. I was just confident and kind of doing the internal analysis on what I was presenting and the script that the comic that I'd created, excuse me, not script, graphic novel. And I kind of hedged my bets a little bit where I said, I think this is what this can do, like based on all the information that I had gotten. And I wasn't discouraged by anybody saying it wouldn't work or anything like that. It was absorb it, roll with it, be a professional, don't be emotional about it. And even in some of our conversations, I kind of explained to you that, you know, this is why I picked the number. And if it doesn't work, we have a plan B that we can go roll with. We were going to break the book up and turn them into individual comics at that point, because it's 6 chapters. So it's like, okay, we'll do individual books that are down at like a $1,500 number or $1,200 or like $2,000 number on a Kickstarter. And maybe that ends up working out to be better because we can do 6 books and we get a little momentum. But ultimately, I wanted to get the entire book out into people's hands because I just want to entertain as many people as possible. And to go back to our first question, if I get one more backer and they get to read the book, I'll be super stoked. So that's how I was taking the feedback, and I didn't take it personally at all. And, you know, it was, you guys have all the knowledge, let me absorb it. And then I'll do a little like indexing and I'll make the decision.
Yeah, and it looks like you made a great decision out of all of that too, you know?
Yeah.
Because even, you know, there's always the internal fear of the creator just trying to be like, I just hope this works. Like I'm praying, I just want this to work no matter what. And then like any sort of like negative, you know, feedback or advice or anything to correct you on that course sometimes can like kind of hurt a little bit. And it's kind of crazy because I mean, your background in the film industry and screenwriting, I feel like that made you really thick too. Because I've heard that the film just world and, you know, everything. And even, you know, hearing you even just say the idea you had for a script, I know filmmaker friends that won't even tell their ideas out because there's like a thing with filmmaking where they're just like scared everyone's going to steal their ideas or take it away, or, you know, and I guess we've seen that in modern day too with some scripts and crazy stuff like that. And in comics, you've had it happen, and it's
many
in
times,
comics.
actually.
I never hear that, like ever. I never hear someone like, oh, they took my comic idea and they ran with it and they did all this. And I mean, it's crazy that the film industry is so cutthroat in that sense. How do you feel like going from film to like kind of this comic book vibe of people and group that you've kind of entered into now?
There's maybe I'll answer that with give two answers on that. The first one is with my film experience, I did have corporate experience before going into it, and I kind of had my radar out because I kind of learned early. I won't go into details, but I've had these situations happen to me where it's like you say an idea, and all of a sudden, like I had one situation where I actually went into a movie theater and you know, without being able to literally definitively say this is like I was watching my movie and I was like, what the heck just happened? So like have your radar out. People are, it's very easy to say it's in the zeitgeist, an idea, or somebody you say an idea to sends one or two emails and all of a sudden it's at somewhere else and it's, hey dude, what's going on? Thanks for being here. So you learn that really quick, like really, really quickly. I will say in the comic book community, I think it's been awesome. Like I think the people that I've met are all awesome people, and it's not as dog eat dog or cutthroat where it's like a rising tide raises all boats. So it's like if your book does well, our industry grows, and then people will buy more books. So it's not like if I don't sell my script, there's no other time to sell a script because there's only Warner Brothers is only making 18 movies this year. Like, so you don't, I don't think you have that because there's no barrier to entry in terms of like opportunities from a studio or a production company to make your film. Like if you got a great story and you got, the talent to put it together, like make the book. And that's, I mean, ultimately what I did. I didn't go through, it would be great to partner with a, Boom or IDW or something like that and have that. But at the end of the day, I just made the decision to just do it myself and there was no stopping me. So I couldn't really do that with making a television show or a feature. I mean, realistically, I think that isn't entirely true. I think nowadays with the equipment being cheap and technology being amazing, young filmmakers, I would encourage you to just make as many movies as possible, like produce things. Don't wait to sell your script, just go make it. Because those barriers have come down in like tenfold in the last 10 years, 15 years. But to kind of go more back directly to your question, like the comic book industry so far for me has just been off the charts awesome. I've had one or two like, oh, radar's out, like bing, 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 bing. But that also then the experience from Hollywood has informed that really like immediately, like instead of in those situations, they get pushed and you're like, why is this happening? Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on? And then boom, you're like really screwed. It's like, hey dude, nice talking to you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Like anything else? Like, and you're aware of what's going on. So, everything kind of happens for a reason and you learn from everything and you use it. So, but comic book industry has been awesome so far.
I love hearing that because like the indie community we have, especially the one I interact with constantly on the shows, on Spilled Ink, on any of the book reviews I do. It's some of it's calculated to an extent, but so much of it is based off of like, oh, this person just seems like a great person. Let me just interact with them a little bit, bring them on the show. Like, let's get to know them a little bit more and support them. And I love how that just gets passed around, like you were saying. I've never been. I come from a music background where even that felt very cutthroat. Every band was kind of fighting each other. There was a hardcore scene and we played like prog. We were more like at the drive-in and whatnot. And there was a big hardcore scene in El Paso and they just did not like us. They did not like our sound. So they were always trying to fight us. And here, if you bring something different and unique, everyone's like just more interested, and totally. They're excited for you. They're trying to cheer you on. And I mean, film wise, I couldn't even enter that barrier because it was so rough and we had ideas to do things and it just never really panned out. And I mean, I guess every perspective is different, your connections depending on how you approach stuff, but filmmaking almost felt impossible versus making a comic, which even then can feel impossible. What do you think the comparison is there from you trying to get a film or a TV show out versus you trying to get this book made and created and now funded?
Interesting question. So for me, the whole going to general meetings and writing new scripts, I've written 25 screenplays, so more than that. Going through the notes process and the production hell of things and getting endless feedback and in the current like landscape of Hollywood, you really don't get paid for any of that stuff. You're just kind of doing it, hoping that, you're working with the right people and they end up pulling the trigger on things. And not only then it still gets made after that, like, so that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And for me, it was just, so Earic specifically was originally written as a comic book. It was something that I wanted to do. And I did the first 30 pages while I was in grad school, like 10 years ago. So if anybody ends up getting the book, David, my interior artist, did redo the art on those. Like, he updated it in the last like 6 months, but you'll probably be able to see like the art from 10 years ago and how awesome David is as his career's progressed. But the expense of it just shut that down, like post grad. I just couldn't afford to keep doing the book, and there was other circumstances around it. But meetings, you know, ideas getting kind of taken away, mentioned. Like, I had the most recent, I won't go into any details, but I had somebody take an idea of mine, and like, you could see this person talking about the idea on YouTube, on videos and stuff with big name people. And I'm sitting there saying that I just had the meeting with them like 2 days ago, and they're reading back the email I sent. Like, this is nuts. And it was like, what can you do in those situations? Lawyer up and spend $1 million to win nothing. Like, it doesn't really get you anywhere. And all it does is get you, like, you know, build some enemies in that situation. So for me, it was just a decision where I want to entertain as many people as possible. That's why I transitioned to being a writer. I've always wanted to do a graphic novel. There's nothing stopping me except the finances on it. So I was like, this is what I'm doing moving forward. It's going to get done, like, no matter what. A lot of days not going outside to save money to pay for it, because comics are very, very expensive. Very expensive.
I feel that.
But that was the decision I made. It was like, I'm not going to even, you know, if meetings happen and stuff and that side of my career progresses, wonderful. Like, I am a professor, so I'm immersed in it, like, on a day-to-day basis all the time. I have tons and tons of friends and connections in Hollywood, so I'm talking to them all the time. I live here in LA, but I'm just going to make my own stuff and not be dependent on somebody else. And I give that advice to any like screenwriter also. It's like, if you're just trying to wait to get on the escalator of somebody buying your script and, you know, being beholden to all these different steps, it's like, you might be waiting at the first step of the escalator for your entire life. So like, and I did that for way too long. And it was like, you know what? I want to entertain people. I love comics. This was written as a comic. I'm making a graphic novel. And that's how I was like, I just said, we're doing it, and we're here. We did it.
So, and you know, whenever I interact with screenwriters who start writing comics, there's always a kind of a bridge to kind of cross editorially, you know, like how many moments happen in a panel and like a scene, and how some of the scripts are broken up. How was that for you, like creatively, like switching from a screenwriting background and then going into your comic book aspect, and the restrictions that come with doing comics too?
So that's also a very interesting question, because I wrote this before I went to film school. So I wrote this before I had written screenplays at the time, but so pen to paper started in 2012. My buddy worked at Blizzard, and he was a huge comic book collector, and he used to like share his digital like Comixology account with me. And one day he said, "Hey dude, I want to write a comic." And I was like, "Let's go. Like, I'm in." He was so busy that it quickly was like within like 5 days I was writing like frantically, and it just kind of, it didn't work. So then I just kept going with it. But to kind of segue to answer your question more directly, I don't know, maybe no writer has ever done it this way. I didn't know what I was doing. So I took an Excel spreadsheet and I made a 6-panel layout as my page. And then I wrote the whole script in an Excel spreadsheet. So I have a 130-page Excel spreadsheet where I could show you my book and show you the spreadsheet. And it's exactly like when it's like a third of the page, I merge the cells, or when it's like the vertical panel, I merge the panels, and I put my script into that. So I could see exactly what it looked like on the page. Because otherwise I wasn't certain like how much dialogue would be on the page. By the way, there's probably a little too much on my pages if I'm being transparent. But that's how I could like visualize it. Because at the time, I like exactly the question you're answering was the question I was having in myself. I was like, what is this going to look like on a page? And is it going to overwhelm the artist? Is it going to be able to fit in a panel? And I was like, how am I going to make this make sense to me? And I was like, Excel spreadsheet, let's go. So I pulled it up, and you'll see in my book, I'll show you real quick. Like I'll show a literal page from it. But like this is this is the first page of the book, but there's your 6 panels in an Excel spreadsheet, like right there. So that's my writing process in a nutshell. There is a normal script for it, a conventional script. I also went through and like made a PowerPoint with all reference images for everything, that because it's a big sci-fi thing, and I was like, is he gonna be able to understand what, like, whoever I was going to ultimately work with? So that was I wouldn't even say it was a transition, because I was like just starting kind of to be a screenwriter at that time, maybe 2 or 3 years into writing screenplays, but I hadn't gone to like film school or anything. And yeah, man, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So
I mean, that makes sense. That's a good way to go about it. I've seen people do the Excel worksheet before, but not in that
okay.
manner where you're like mapping out the panel layout with the Excel at the same time. And I think that's kind of brilliant. It's kind of very um it gives you a great visual way to do it. And I mean, I do it where I'll write the script and then I'll handwrite everything. Like I'll hand draw the
This
panels.
is 2 cells merged together on an Excel spreadsheet right here. So you can
Yeah.
click on 2 and then click the merge button, and it merges them. So it's like my artist
Wow.
knew exactly what I was trying to do.
Dude, that's awesome, and I'm sure that's, like, pretty fun as an artist on the layout aspect too, to kinda see something like that. It's a very I mean, I always feel like scripts and all that are like puzzle pieces, and you're always just trying
So
to figure out how to make it work, and once you make the puzzle work, you can work with it, especially with comics. And being a bit being able to be a bit looser with your scripts in that sense too, was that a bit freeing coming from I know the strict boundaries of formatting, screenwriting, and some people even toss a script out if it doesn't like, hit the right, the way things are spaced or the way things are paged out. And so I've seen crazy stuff like that. How was that for you? Just being able to like, oh, I could loosen up and I don't have to adhere to the screenwriting gods on formatting.
yeah, that's a good question. Again, because again, like, this is for anybody even writing a screenplay. If you're going to make the movie, it can look like whatever you want it to look like. You can write your script on a napkin, but when you're trying to crack into an industry, like what you just said is 100% the truth. So KO Productions, and like specifically Bob Orsi, he rest his soul, he passed away recently, but he used to come to our grad school, and we would do like screenwriting workshops, and he wouldn't read your script. He would look at it, and if it looked like it didn't like fit, he would be like, try again. And you'd be like,
Yeah.
wait, what? And he's like, this doesn't look right. And it wasn't even
Yep.
like the formatting. It was just like, if in his mind it didn't look right.
I had
Luckily,
a
I
teacher
was
like that.
always,
Yep.
yeah, luckily I was always like, I'm really good with like the rules of screenwriting and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I actually, maybe it's a little like pretentious-y, but I actually like that stuff in the screenwriting space, because it shows that you've learned the craft versus I'm going to write a movie, because there's really a lot to actually being a good screenwriter
Mhm.
beyond just like, I have a movie idea. It's like there's a lot to it. So, and it's a real art form in my opinion. So the freeing nature of the comic book stuff was like, I didn't have to really show it to anybody, because it was for me and my artist. So once I knew that it could make sense, I was like, this is how I'm going to do it, because I got to do it this way for me. And when I first started talking, David Ward is the interior artist. He was like, oh man, this works for, like, I see it all now. This is awesome.
Cool.
So I was like, perfect, perfect, perfect. So believe it or not, I'll probably do that going forward. And if I'm in a situation with somebody that doesn't like it, you just pull everything out of the Excel spreadsheet, and it looks exactly like a conventional script for a comic book. So I hope that kind of directly answered your question, but
No,
maybe
yeah,
kind of
no,
80% of the way
100%.
there.
That's, because I've had those film teachers where they saw a film script and they were seeing how everyone would do it right away, and he was just like, "I want you all to write, like I think I forgot how many pages it was. It was like 15 pages, 12 or something." And some of them he would just glance at and be like, "This isn't right. This isn't right." And as we did bigger stories throughout the year, that's just how we knew like if you were paying attention or not, because you either
Yeah.
fixed your notes or he was still tossing your script. And I think only 2 or 3
Totally.
of us at the end of all that, like, really made it to the end where he read our final scripts, and I was just like, "Oh, man," I wanted to cry, like, if he was gonna toss it one more time. Um, well, let me bounce to the chat real fast. We have some cool people popping up. We have,
Yeah.
Daryl Murphy saying hi, our boy Daryl from the street team. How you doing, Daryl? And
Yeah,
then
man.
my favorite dude, Retro Roman Doomsday and Simulation Channel, he pops up on Spilled Ink and everything. I love him. The recent novel I'm writing is just a series of rewrites and emails and a bunch of notes, and a notebook. Honestly, I would love to hear about that. What is your writing process like when you're developing your ideas? How messy is it? How organized is it when before you enter your scripting phase?
Oh man. So for this book in particular, I I'm a science nerd, like hardcore science nerd. So you're apologies in advance for everyone that reads this book. There's a little flashback like from page 7 to like 18 where we get the whole universe and how it came to where it would be. But that's kind of where I started, because it's like a, you know, set in the near future in this sci-fi space. So for this was like merging a couple ideas together. It was this giant kind of universe and questioning science and what humanity is going to look like in the near future, what the solar system would look like. Like, I know everyone's talking about, this is even 20 years ago when I first started this. It was like, we're going to Mars and we're going to terraform Mars. And I was like, the humanity evolved in 1G, and when we go there, we're going to be a wreck. Like, we're going to have like ocular degeneration because we're not going to be able, like, you're going to be blind in like 3 years of being on Mars. Like, all these problems that humanity will face. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, it's almost a fool's errand. Like, why don't we just go to the moon? Because the moon is like 0.16 G versus Mars, which is 0.3. It's like, why do we need to go a year away when we could just, like, there's ice caps on the moon, like, just go there instead. And if you want to be multiplanetary, it's not a planet, but we can live there. So anyway, sorry, I'm nerding out. You got to
love that. I didn't know that at all. That's awesome. Like, that was super cool. I didn't know that at all. That's insane. That makes me be like, why would we ever do that? Honestly, you're right. Like, that's insane.
If the idea is to be multiplanetary, yes, the moon is technically, in terms of astronomical like terminology, is not a planet, but we can go there in a day versus 3 months, best case with current technology, to Mars. And when you're having medical problems there, good luck. Like, you ain't getting back. So it's like, even like, what is it going to look like? I know nowadays they're talking about 1 million people on Mars and, you know, the first Martian baby. It's like, what is a baby going to look like in utero? Like, literally developing in less than half a G. So these are all questions I was asking. So to get back to your question, sorry, tangent off into the abyss of nowhere of craziness, human. This is the process. Insanity, dude. There you go.
That's being a writer.
Cut it off. Nutty job, right? So it's merging a bunch of ideas at this point. So like, I built the whole universe. Like, so there's 2 divergent groups of humanity in this book. There's Gaddics who have modified their DNA to become, you know, they've slowly tinkered with their technology years and years and a century at this point. And they're 9 feet tall. Their skin's bulletproof. They're strong as you can possibly imagine. But even beyond that, in the universe itself, like, when we see their city, like, their tables are grown because they know how to manipulate DNA so much that they just grow the tree into the shape they want it to be. You don't need a carpenter to make a tree, like a table. It just grows into it. So that's like the Gaddic world. And as half of humanity like rejected that technology, viruses and diseases evolved with Gaddic humans, decimating the other unengineered half of society. So in a desperate attempt to save everybody, I was having surgeries at the time in 2000 when I thought of this, but I said, in the near future, like Moore's law, technology getting smaller, they're just going to put little machines inside of you, and they're going to go repair whatever it is. It's going to repair a broken bone. If you have a tumor, it's going to just go in and literally eat it. And that like that created what is in the book called microscopic white blood cell replacement therapy. These people are called nanodites. So those are our 2 divergent groups of humanity. Terraforming Venus, the whole process of doing that actually makes sense. Like, using Kuiper belt objects as like to orbit elliptically around Jupiter to pull them out and move Mars in. So all the planets are orbiting elliptically around themselves in the Goldilocks zone. So we actually end up terraforming Venus. All those things were just questions that I was asking myself, like an insane human. And then a book can't be called Universe, right? That's not a story. So that's why it's called Earic. Because it's like, I developed this character and I said, what would be like the hero's journey? How far would you go? The story itself is about a father doing anything to save his sick son. So illness and disease have been eradicated. So even when he has the first sick son in a century, there's no doctors, and humanity has fallen into the mistakes of forgetting our past. So he has to basically become a doctor and go on this perilous journey where he has to go to Venus, he has to go to Mercury, he has to go to Mars. And it's like, the obstacles that can be created in the universe, this sandbox that I've made, can be 10 times more impossible than just based in any kind of like normal reality. So it's a hero's journey. And now that I've created a gigantic sandbox, I'm like, let's make the obstacles that Earic has to face absolutely impossible. Like, I mean, let's see if we can kill this guy and like bring him back to life, or let's, you know, like, whatever the most extreme things are, we dumped it on Earic and we made it as hard as humanly possible for him to accomplish his goal. And kind of like the story of like good and evil and like building. In my opinion, this book, it represents like the absolute best humanity can represent, and that's who Earic is. So that's kind of the process of how I got to this book, at least. It can be with other stories, it can be a lot of different things. I can think of the ending and I'm like, man, that has to be the ending of something. And then I'll reverse engineer and fill it all back in. Sometimes it's a character that I start with. I'm like, this person is going to be amazing. Like the God's Will script that I referenced earlier. I forget exactly the origin of that, but I was like, what if basically like Revelations and, and Jesus came back to earth, right? Like, what would that look like? And it was like, what would that look like in like this scenario? And then I kind of went from there. And he would, this silent like archangel coming down, like that priests have begged for, and now he's here to kind of like, you're going to get what you asked for. And the priests are like, whoa, rapture, right? So it's like it's all dependent, and the ideas just come out of nowhere. And as you can tell from me rambling for the last 9 minutes to answer your question, I'm insane. So it's just like madness, and you make sense of it and you put it down on paper.
Yeah, I mean that's the fun part about being a writer, though. You know what I mean? You kind of have to be a little crazy in some sense to do anything artistic. I feel, for one, to think that anyone cares enough about your idea that you have in your head to like go out there and support it and back it and share it with the world and hope people are attracted to it. It takes a lot of even what we're doing, interviewing and stuff like that. Like it trips me out when I have friends that tell me that like stuff like this is intimidating and like how do you just jump on the camera and do stuff like that, and I just wing it, just pure fear, just anxiety. And it's just you just right off of that tail, and you just hope for the best every episode, and you kind of hope that your guest is the same way too. And that's just like when you're crafting like comics or art or a script, you're kind of just being like, I'm gonna just spit all this out, and I hope that like the people get it, and I hope that people are out there that are going to resonate and also maybe feel and question the same things I'm feeling and questioning. And I think expanding more on that sci-fi level of deepness is so important in expressing your book too, because I feel like sci-fi especially, I'm a big sci-fi fan. It's something I've always grown up with. I have a giant space opera sci-fi story I've always been trying to write and get down. But it was even one of the stories I knew I wasn't smart enough to write when I started the process. And I was just like, I gotta wait a little bit and experience some stuff. And it's something that's in the works. But going into those fine details of what you're doing into like the scientific explanation, that goes so far with your audience, and it shows how deep and passionate you were about getting this out. And even just reflecting on so far your experience with the film industry, I feel like that makes this just so much more exciting to like get out there in the world. Like you hit a milestone that probably like has been waiting in the dark for so long, and this book is really just like a beacon for you. Which makes me also very curious. Like, this book took a while to write and put together and to format and to get, living. What's your next project that you're trying to develop and get going after this?
So I have 3 additional books completely written already. Like, I mean, I have like tons of scripts written, but actual comic books written. The next one that I hope to work on, that all I need is the funds. Like I would, someone actually asked me this at LA Comic-Con yesterday. It was like, what's your limiting factor right now? And the only thing is funding it. Like, it's the bandwidth. So I had an entertainment lawyer ask me this. This is a different conversation, but it seems to always come up. Like, he said, what would you do with 50 grand right now? And I was like, I'd make 2 books. I'd make 3 books. Like, and he was like, he did not expect that. He thought it was like, I don't know what he was expecting out of the answer, but the next book is actually going to be, just because I'm super passionate about this and I write a lot of kids animation. This hopefully, Earic, there's more books with Earic. Okay. There's actually kind of an endless amount, but the one that's written right now is something called Doodle. And it's about, I'll give you, in the imaginary world of novella, like the way you're drawn dictates your life story. So if you're drawn like an egg, you're Humpty Dumpty, and all the characters in this world are drawn by a man named Walt Disney. Really creative. But he draws all these characters on an imaginary easel, and he will reach into the easel and pull you out into the world. And as he's working on his last creation, he's not able to finish Doodle. Doodle is a doodle on the easel when an evil villain abducts him and is going to take Waldus away because he wants an explanation as to why he was drawn with an evil story. And his evil master plan is to paint the world dark so that everyone has to have the same evil story that he has and live in his misery. So Doodle has to go on this hero's journey to be completed because he can't exist in this world without being drawn and completed. So he forces himself off the easel, pops out into the world, and goes on this amazing hero's journey. I won't spoil it anything beyond that because that's just the beginning of the book, but it's completely written like, another 100+ page graphic novel. If I can get some funds to make it, that would be that. The other two, I'll keep those quiet, a little more quiet, but yeah, dude, that's the next book. In terms of the Earic space, like, honestly, if you end up getting this book, so a handful, more than a handful of people have read the book. Awesome enough. Thank you to everyone who's read it so far. There's a couple twists that pop up in this book where they'll mic drop and like send me a text like, what the did I just read? Like, what? Let me tell you, the twists that are in this book are the tip of the iceberg in terms of what this universe is and where it's going and the stories there. So yeah, I'd be stoked to get another one of these going like immediately if possible. But again, it's all about, as anyone knows in this space, it's all about the opportunity cost of getting things completed. It's very high. It's very, very high. So I'm not making any money off this book. If anybody's curious, I am the reverse of that.
Yeah, because you've invested so much. I mean, the time is one expense that's just paramount, and you can't ever. This is one of those things. It's priceless. And the amount you've already spent to get developed and made into the production, like I know everything is going towards your artists and printing. Pretty much, that's pretty much all it is. There's that, like the majority of us comic book writers, we use our Kickstarter to really fuel our artists and make sure that they're taken care of during this process. And it's one of those things where once you get success with a book, and especially on Kickstarter, I'm so excited to see where your next one goes because you have such a good audience base to pull from because of this Kickstarter,
Everyone's awesome.
And yeah, no, and I think people are going to read this book and be astounded because I've read the first, I think 2.5, 3 chapters of it so far. Since
you haven't gotten to the
I'm really excited for it, and it's one of those things where I'm just like I've been captivated by it because I was going to be really nitpicky when I read it because I was like, I know you're a screenwriter, I know you're a professor, and I was excited to see. Well, I don't want to spoil it for people either, but like your craft shows through it. And that's what enticed me about it. Like I took my time and I realized the way you were hitting your beats, the way you presented the first issue and the way things happen, and then the way things roll and progress. I was like, you know how to do transitions. You know how to make a story flow. You know how to make a character that's captivating, that like, we're like, oh, I find a connection to this person because of, X, Y, and Z. And you're just like, oh, I'm interested. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, I can't wait to have it in physical hands to like really go through it because it's a beautiful story. And I love, oh yeah, there you go. That original printing is so beautiful too, honestly, that first edition you got done. And that's what 3 of those were available, correct? On your Kick. Are those all sold out too? I don't know if
those are sold out. Yeah.
Those are sold out. Okay.
There was 2 individual ones you could purchase. Those went right away, and then there was like a huge bundle that included one of those, and that sold also. So yeah, cool. This is a sold book. So sorry, whoever the person that's getting this, I'm sorry I'm touching it, but we'll put it back down. That's yours.
And you had great tiers in your Kickstarter as well, which I know helped excel your performance on there more than anything. But your craft is like something that really has gripped me since our first conversations. And what made you decide, or kind of passionate enough about writing and screenwriting, to kind of go into teaching it as well? Because I feel like as a professor, as an instructor, you're putting your work on a pedestal when you release this stuff too, because you're known for these things. And I feel the same way. And it's crazy. I just I'll even admit mistakes still happen no matter how good you think you are. I just discovered a giant print error in our horror anthology with my story out of everything. I mixed up the pages and I was like, oh, It'll still feel
Oh
okay.
no, man.
But like it's you put yourself on a pedestal because you're the example of these type of things. So when you
Yeah.
find errors, you're kind of critical on yourself. But what was that like for you to release this book, but also being a professor, knowing that you're releasing this book and you have like your background behind you?
Yeah. So if you don't mind, I'll expand a little bit,
Yeah.
because there was a part of the first part of your question actually was like kind of uh, like why did I transition to being a writer? So when I was an undergrad, I was actually I thought I was going to be a professional athlete. So I thought I was going to be a baseball player, and I you know had a lot of athletic gifts and a skill set that I thought was like in my own head. Perspective is everything, but I ended up having a shoulder surgery, and then I needed 6 more after that to fix that kind of experimental surgery that they don't do anymore. And my career was really ended before it ever started. With what, like, as soon as I had that surgery, that was it. But I played for another like 7 or 8 years after that. And like last time I had a meeting at Disney over in Burbank, I told this story to the person that I was sitting with, because she kind of asked me about this. She knew about my background. So the question was like why did you transition to be a writer from that? So exiting my athletic career, I ended up having 10 surgeries. Like both my hips need to be replaced. I snapped my foot off and I had to have my ankle reconstructed, 6 shoulder surgeries, elbow surgery. I'm pretty broken down, but the thing that I miss most isn't actually, at the time, wasn't necessarily the act of actually playing, or I loved the locker room and I missed all those things, but it was moments that were special. And I'll give one example of it, and I've given this one a bunch on a couple different podcasts when this is coming up. But I used to go to a batting cage on the 405. That's not there anymore. It was butted up against the 405, and if you hit the ball right, it actually went onto the 405. So if you don't live in California, 405 is the worst freeway in all of the United States. Like, it's just pure gridlock and a nightmare. But you could hit a ball and like literally kill somebody. That's probably why the batting cage isn't there anymore. But I was there on like a Wednesday, and I knew the owner. So Wednesday at like noon, and I was there all by myself, and he used to crank the machine up really high. And this car pulled up, and a little 4-year-old kid got out of the car. And if you've ever seen a kid with like a floppy helmet that doesn't fit and like a baseball bat that they can't carry, he like got out of his car and he was like running towards the batting cage because he saw the machine was throwing 100 miles an hour. And his dad got out of the car, and his dad was wearing like a business suit, and he was just taking a half day or taking a lunch break to be with his kid. Like he didn't care what he was going to be doing. He just wanted to spend some time with his son. And his son didn't care who I was or what I was doing. He was just excited to, what exactly happened was he ran up to the cage, and I guess they had been in an Angel game over the weekend. And he goes, Dad, that's the Angel from the game the other night. And I was not an Angel. I was just a collegiate athlete at UCLA. And his dad came over. He's like, oh, no, he's not. No, he's not. He's like, yeah, Daddy, yeah. And he wasn't even looking at me, to be honest. He was just excited to be with his dad and to show his dad the Angel. And his dad was just like beaming to be with his son. So the beauty of being an entertainer or a creative or a writer is to be able to entertain people or bring them together, like, and make them happy. So when I ended up in the corporate world and I was kind of doing this job that I did really well in the job. I progressed through my career and I was moving up the line really, really fast. I kind of said to myself, I can't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I had written my first screenplay when I was stuck in bed post-op from a surgery. So I was stuck in bed and there was nothing to do. So I opened my laptop and wrote a movie. And that's kind of the transition to it. Like, I was like, one day I hope to hand this book to somebody and just make them happy. Like, and at the end of it, they're like, man, that was awesome. And I'll be happy. Like, I'll be satisfied. Or to go, like, at least then I was in that initial step to film school is like to go into a movie theater, not to see my name on the screen or not to like get notoriety for the film that I would make, but to actually turn around and like watch the audience, knowing that like a family was together and like having 2 hours because their week was stressful, but they get to be with their kids or their wife or on a date. And I got to like bring them together to make them happy. That's like what I missed. And that's why I committed to like transitioning. To answer the second part of your question about being a professor, yeah, dude, I am like, you can't really hide now. That's the truth of like, so that's the entertainment business as a whole, right? So your consumable, your product, like your consumable will be judged by people. Mm-hmm. So I'm fully prepared that someone's going to read this book and be like, your science sucks or your characters are crap or whatever. And I'm prepared for that, and I hope that doesn't happen. But yes, like I have a pretty solid reputation as a professor at our school, and we're one of the top in the world. So I have a lot of great students that have found tons of success in Hollywood too. So I'm excited. I'm actually excited for them to read it and stuff. But maybe some of my students are like, "That's the shitty comic book writer. Oh God!" And then I'll cross that bridge when I get there. But
You're gonna
so
have that
far,
one student that's gonna be like, "You got mad at me for doing this, and you went and did it," and that's gonna be like the one that hits. Like.
yeah, no, it's definitely legit. It's legit. So like in terms of here's what I'll say in that exact situation. I know the craft, like, and I can help you. I can help you like academically, like beyond just like giving my opinions on things. I can like you mentioned a second ago when you were reading the book, like, and one of the things you said was like, this guy knows transitions.
Mhm.
So I knew I didn't have any bandwidth to have filler in my book at all. So every sixth panel and every page, I wrote like basically it was an act out, meaning that I needed to keep you engaged to go to the next panel. And I was like, if I'm not executing that for 120 pages as a no-name writer that no one's ever heard of, like I'm not doing my job. Meanwhile, investing tons and tons into the project itself. So
Mhm.
I was like, what's pulling you to the next page? What's pulling you to the next page? There's no like there was no room for error in terms of like the way I approach writing this. Now I will say I wrote this in 2012, so I can't wait to write the next one because my actual writing skills are on a totally different level at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I look at my book now, I'm like, shit. No, it's really great, but it's like you pick things apart and you're like,
Of
man, I
course.
can't wait to show like I can't wait, and like I'm really really stoked. So I kind of gave two answers to the one question, but
Oh, yeah.
hopefully that's kind of the
100%. I mean, that's finding that that aspect of just knowing where you are as a storyteller too. I mean, it's
yeah
really always about the audience and it's about you're serving them. And I've always described stories. Brian McDonald has always pointed this out, and that's where I get it from. But stories are survival information, and you're always giving someone some aspect of survival information. And that goes back to the beginning of storytelling. And it doesn't matter what type of story you're writing, you're teaching someone a lesson so they could carry on, so they could learn something, so they could feel something. And
yeah
you're in service of your audience once you start delivering things like that. And that's what it's about. Honestly, that's more important than any other aspect of storytelling, is just serving your audience and giving that survival information that they could take with them and learn a lesson and do something with. And I felt that just right away from page one, and the way you started executing things. And that's where I'm so excited to see. And I name mainly in print, and I named the transitions because digital is one format, when you read
yeah
stuff and process it. But I'm excited to see how it feels like with page turns and everything. It's a very intimate moment when you're reading a comic and you're just engrossed in it. And
yeah
I'm so excited for that for your book. But that's exciting because you being a screenwriter and even knowing that you've grown since you first wrote that, and you probably feel it, every writer feels this, but the moment you hand it to someone, you realize all the mistakes in it. And the moment, like, once you've put it out there in the
oops
world, you're just like, I
oops
know I'm so much better than this, but that's where you were when you wrote it. And
yeah
that's the beautiful part of like art. And it's a time stamped of where you were at that time. Which is, I mean, exciting for your next work. So if people love this, they could only expect, better and greater, which is a great advancement even within the indie realm and, upcoming writer realm. So where are you in the stance of, as we wrap up our conversation a little bit, where are you in the stance of like filmmaking? Do you feel like you ever want to go back into that realm and try to do stuff still? Do you feel like this is just an easier spot for you to like continue your passion and your storytelling and accessibility at that point?
yeah that's a fantastic question, and the honest transparent answer to that is I would never close off any of those opportunities. But to also be transparent, like I think if you and there are people that do this successfully in this space. I think if you're just trying to like create a comic to get it made into a movie, you're kind of doing a disservice to the medium, to the craft. So for me right now, I'm just trying to make killer graphic novels and like books going forward. And I kind of have like a 5 or 10 year horizon on that, like where I'm just going to continue to plow forward, and whatever funds I have, that's the limiting factor of me creating great books. If those opportunities present themselves, and like if screenwriting stuff comes at me regularly. So I'm kind of known also as like a fixer. So oftentimes I'll get screenplays and on small budget films and stuff that'll come my way, and I'll give a read for somebody, and and punch it up or fix it or point out like some holes in it. Those things will always be part of my career. I don't think I'll ever shy away from that. That's what I do on a daily basis also as a professor, more or less. I teach to the thesis class at my university. So it's like I'm helping students write their writing sample to go out into Hollywood. So on a daily basis, I'm working on 30 to 40 screenplays and helping everybody try to get their scripts to the best possible versions that they can be. But for this book specifically, I'm just trying to make a killer book. If an opportunity presents itself in the future, absolutely. I'm not, why would I say no? Like, I mean, I think some of the best shows on TV, I'm a comic book nerd. So some of my favorite shows on TV right now are Invincible. Like, I cannot wait for season 3. Like, hell yeah. I've watched it like 3 times.
Yes.
So like in a weird dream, if I dreamed about Earic being like that, sure. But like, I didn't write this to do that. Like, I'm writing a great story to, like I said, get it in somebody's hand. And like, if they can say, man, I dug this and I like it, I am very happy with like what I did. That's the goal.
And so, this might open up a can as well, but I know creators. This just going off of what you said, it kind of popped up a couple questions. But some creators are very because of the way Netflix and some of these channels work, they'll make comics so that it could become an IP, so it can get picked up.
Exactly.
Had that crossed your mind about this and being like, this could lead to my break in filmmaking if I approach it with a comic to become IP? Was that never a question in your mind, or you're just like purely because of how you're approaching it and the intent of it? It was just more like, this is a comic. This is meant to be a comic. And if it gets picked up, cool, we would alter stuff maybe, but this was truly purely meant to be a comic in a sense.
Yeah, so like I said, this was written even from the beginning as a comic. So that's what it was going to be. I'd be completely dishonest just because I've been asked the question a bunch. Like, could I see this being a movie, or would I want it to be a movie? The answer is, of course. Like, I mean, the story itself, in my opinion, of course, is my perspective because I'm also the writer. I love the story. I love the universe. I can see it on the screen, like big screen. I can see everything about it. I will say the one qualifier would be that I don't think I would ever allow someone to purchase this off me. Like, the only situation that I would allow it to be in that space would be as if I am like on the creative team or the lead of it.
Yeah.
Like, even if they said some astronomical number, which Hollywood can do, I would probably say no, because it's more valuable to me to control it and to make sure it's like how I want it to be than like, Disney taking it and turning it into, I love Marvel movies, by the way. I'm not trying to like but like to not be part of it, I wouldn't want to do that. And just to be transparent, I know tons of people in this space that do exactly what you just said. Like, it's like, I'm going to make this so that it's IP, so then I can take it out into, take it over to CAA or WB, and I have like, this is my comic, this is IP. Let's mine this into, and that's totally like, that's awesome. If you can pull that off, like, more power to you. So, and like, this is probably going to age badly, like in a weird, awesome way. Like, if that situation happens to me in the future and someone's like clipping this and they're like, oh, I'm going to be like, no, I was always open to the opportunity. And if that happens, that will be phenomenal. And I would absolutely love that. But yeah, the intention was, I was kind of tired of being in the kind of production, like, morass of Hollywood, where you're writing a new screenplay and then you spend 6 months on it and then someone reads it, and in 30 minutes, they've already said like, pass. And you're like, I just worked on this forever. Or hey, do this round of notes, and you do 3 months of notes, and then they read it again in 30 minutes. And they're like, hey, why don't we do this? And I was like, that's how it was before you gave me notes. And then you like go back to the draft. So it's like, that will drive you seriously insane. And I did that for a decade. So I just want to make people happy with my stories right now. The comic book is where it's at right now. And then if in the future something happens in Hollywood, that would be incredible. And I would never, ever say no to that. But it's not this book. That's not what I was like. This is going to be a TV show one day, so I'm going to do this. That's not the way I approached it.
Well, that's awesome. That it shows how much heart goes into this project and how much like pure intention it was
Yeah,
to kind of go this route. And I always like because I always like balancing that question, especially because of filmmakers, because there is a small window of opportunity there. I mean, technically, it's there for everybody, but people with
yeah,
connections and people with experience know that there's
yeah,
there's some other opportunity there, and there's that form of corruption too. I've seen. I'm a big Umbrella Academy fan. I love the comic.
yeah.
I'm a big fan of the comic, and I just couldn't watch the show after like season one because it just broke off so hard and like Gerard wasn't part of it, with production and stuff. And so when you lose the creative intent behind it and that starts to get warped, it kind of warps some of the fandom. Sure, it creates more fandom, but it could also warp it as well. Shows like Deadly Class where Rick Remender was part of the crew and the writing process came out great. Sandman I thought was a great adaptation too.
Yep.
Having Neil involved with season one so heavily and part of season two, but it was like some of that stuff it pans out right when you have the person who was just like, oh, I meant this and I was thinking this, and artistically we should go to the artist for this, like that brings more fun and energy to a project if it goes in that direction. But aside from that, this is all about comics, and I love that's your response. It really makes me happy with that. But Jon Medici, I'm so excited for our conversation today. This was a great convo, dude. I can't thank you enough. This was packed with
Oh, dude.
information, packed with insight,
Yeah,
and so much more I could have thought we could have got out of it. So thank you for tonight.
yeah. We'll
I
do it
wish
again.
you
We'll do
the
it again.
best. Yes, no, definitely. I would love to see where, on your next project or even post project to see how things are going. But it's really exciting to see once this book comes out what opens up, and seeing you at conventions, seeing what you do with comics moving forward and part of the community as well. And you're the link for the Kickstarter is in the episode description. I hope everyone checks it out. Check out a digital copy. Check out one of the physicals. You have some. Do you want to go over a couple of the tiers really fast? Some of your favorite ones that
Sure.
are available right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So you can get, so this is what the cover would look like. This is the A cover. But you can get right now, I still think there's like 3 or 4 sorry, there's more than that. There's like 10 left of the bonus, but you can get the physical copy of the book for $30 and there's a bonus on there with like a Ashcan digital copy and then a Manhattan Beach comic bug exclusive that has been donated to the project. The B cover is, oops, that's still the A cover. Here's the B cover. So both
Ooh,
these are Ivan Tao, absolute fire. Yeah. That's also, you can do $30. You can get, so there's virgin floppies. That's what this is going to look like. This is what it's going to look like with the trade dress.
ooh,
Um, that have the original art for the first chapter of the book. So if you want a little peek behind the curtain for what it looked like 10 years ago, and there's actually some like nudity in that has been removed, but you can get a floppy with that. So you can get the copy of the graphic novel plus a floppy for like $50. You can get both A and B covers. You can get bundles on all those things. And then on the, unfortunately, the higher tiers, which I thought were really cool, you were actually able to buy, all these are gone, unfortunately, but you could buy this page in the book. There's 6 chapters, so you could buy that and you could do whatever you want with it. So I've already gotten those back from the people that have purchased those. Those look awesome. So we'll do that again, like for the next book. Like if you want to get your like name in there, and there are sick quotes. Like people are rocking out quotes to like the loved ones and stuff, because this book is really about family and love and stuff like that. So they're killer. There were a couple of these you could buy, and then there was a really god tier that went in actually the first couple hours of the Kickstarter, which was great. But yeah, get those physical copies. We're going to do more giveaways. So if you follow me on Instagram, this is an Ivan Tao LA Comic Con exclusive. We're going to give this away. And then like I'll do the giveaway starting tomorrow. So jump on my IG and we'll give that away. Ivan Tao, by the way, dude is the nicest, best human on earth. Talk about comic book community. Dude is awesome. One day we'll talk about the experience with my covers and how that delayed the book. The book's actually been done for 19 months, but it existed without a cover for that long. So we're excited to have these Ivan Taos going.
epic.
And there's a killer trailer on the Kickstarter. So go check out the trailer. That really summarizes the book. Also with more information. And you can reach out to me on Instagram if anybody wants to ask me a question. I'm available. I'm public and I'll respond. So yeah.
Love it. Jon, thank you so much tonight. This was a blast. We've been wanting to do ever since we met. I was excited to bring you on the show. I knew we were gonna have a good time. I can't wait to bring you on, talk about more craft stuff in the future.
Yeah.
That's really, I mean, just loved everything you had to say about what you do and how you do it and your mindset. So thank you for your time. And thank you to all of our listeners and watchers tonight. We had a great audience in the crowd. We had some great conversations going on in the chat. You guys all rule. Let me just do Derelict's quick recommendations. I recommend you read Mental Math by Harry Ligma's Dogmas of the Church, because it reveals truths. Ooh, 2 good reads. Okay.
Okay.
We'll check that
All
out.
right.
Yeah. Well, I'll be hitting Google right after this.
Yeah, dude.
And so everyone stay tuned. We have upcoming guests every Sunday or Monday evening for Inspired Inc. We're booked for the next, honestly, till December 1st. We have a really great time. And if you're going to New York Comic-Con, please let me know. Tag us on CWS. Send me a message. If you're going to Baltimore Comic-Con, let me know. I'm putting together a scavenger hunt for Baltimore Comic-Con right now. So if you're tabling, please shoot me your table number so I can add you to the first picks of the scavenger hunt, so people could go hear your pitch. They sign off on it. People get prizes. It's cool stuff. You get cool exposure. Really want to support you guys while I'm there. Other than that, Jonathan Medici, thank you so much for your evening tonight, man. You have a great one.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on, dudes. Thank you for everyone that was in the chat. You guys are awesome. This community is incredible. Brandon, you're the best example of our community. You are awesome, dude. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bring your comics with Comix Wellspring.